What's up, guys? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the overall market moving forward, some big news involving Tesla and the economic calendar, and what you should be watching for in the charts as well. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total. Not to mention an 8.1% APY on invested cash. The offer ends very soon in just a couple of weeks. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the market. So, as far as Tesla goes, we're on a very, very nice uptrend for the time being. We're pushing up very, very well. Tesla hit this resistance around this 400 area. We hit 404 only to come back down. I was talking about how 394 and 390 were support levels to watch for in case we did reject off 400, but instead Tesla went lower than expected down to about this 380 area. Now, instead of holding below that, Tesla got bought back up at its support, and again, it tried to push up again. So I expect Tesla attempts to push back up towards these highs, back up towards 395 to 400 again. And we'll have to see if Tesla can hold above 400 or not. Otherwise, we might just push and then come back down. I'll talk more details about this chart in just a couple of minutes. I first want to talk about some news and data first. So Tesla's been getting lots of bullish news for the last couple of days. All these different analysts are coming out saying they have $400 price targets on Tesla. We had Goldman Sachs say some interesting things, not to mention others such as Bank of America and Fubon Securities having $421 and $472 price targets for Tesla. Very, very bullish news. On top of this, there's been a lot of talk about the robotaxi. According to Deutsche Bank, they have reported that once again, Tesla's aiming to launch robotaxi with the teleoperator backup just in case, at least to start things off. And eventually, of course, FSD will continue to develop and Tesla will once again make their cars very autonomous. Now, I think that's very, very awesome news. In fact, there were more details about the pricing, at least for this. There once again has been talk about how they're confirming a $30,000 Model Q for 2025. This was a report by Deutsche Bank. I believe Tesla has not officially verified these numbers today, but at the end of the day, they have said this in the past. They are expecting to be under $30,000, around that range. And that's some very, very awesome news. Now, to achieve this, there could be a lot more details coming out, such as them using the molding of different parts to make things a lot more affordable. And then simultaneously, they could be planning on, utilizing different factors, such as having less doors, only 2 doors, and then making it a lot more lightweight, and then simultaneously using a different battery pack that takes up less weight and less energy. So all these different things are going to be utilized to make it a lot more affordable. This is what Tesla's aiming for, so I think that's a great piece of news. They're also going to be a lot more aerodynamic. I've seen a lot of talk about that as well. So this is some very, very big news that's come out for a $30,000 EV. I think that it's going to be very efficient, and I can't wait to see when Tesla launches this. The banks are claiming, so Deutsche Bank is claiming that Tesla should be launching this in the first half of 2025, which is amazing news, considering that we are currently at the very end of 2024, and 2025 is about to start. So within the next couple of months, it's possible Tesla could be getting ready to launch some of their robotaxis. The cybercabs could be out there with some teleoperators just to assist them for the time being. And eventually, they will transition to FSD fully. So very, very awesome stuff with autonomous driving being developed. This was a very, very bullish piece of news. Now, there's some more news coming out that BYD is expected to surpass Tesla's 2024 sales targets. I think that this is a good piece of news for them. However, I'm not really too worried about this because, yes, BYD could sell more than Tesla. That's fine. All I care about is how does Tesla do compared to its own sales numbers. That's all I worry about. And then simultaneously, you have to know that Tesla is not just a car company. They are far ahead of their competitors when it comes to developing autonomous driving and all these different things like Optimus robots and such. So Tesla is ahead when it comes to AI and other factors like that that are very, very bullish. And then BYD is also a great company. They could surpass Tesla sales. That's fine. I don't really care about that. I care more about how well Tesla is doing. Do we see a sustainable amount of growth? And are we going to set ourselves up for a very, very strong open for next year? That's all I care about for Tesla. So I'm not really too worried about these headlines. The media loves to make Tesla look down. They tend to look down upon Tesla. They try to make Tesla look bad, if anything, constantly calling out Tesla, calling out competitors doing better and this and that. I just don't worry too much about that. Volume is up at about 95 million as we're starting to see short volume going up just a little bit. Otherwise, there's not much else that's changing. Deutsche Bank gave Tesla a buy rating yesterday. once again having a bullish price target. On top of this, the price price ratio is still going up as once again Tesla's outperforming the market. And then we also happen to have more green on Tuesdays about 51% of the time. Besides that, everything else is essentially the same. We tend to see more volatility at 11 a.m. and then around 1 p.m., so keep that in mind. In terms of the overall markets, just know the majority of stocks were in the red. Nvidia was also particularly red, but then Apple managed to be a bit in the green because of bullish news about their AI investments increasing. But most stocks were in the red, so keep that in mind. Tomorrow it's going to be Tuesday, December 10th, 2024. Keep in mind that for Wednesday, we have CPI data coming out. So this means that tomorrow is going to be the last full day of trading until CPI comes out. So we have one more day of normal trading, then CPI comes out on Wednesday. So just keep that in mind. For Tuesday, we have very minor data. Some labor numbers come out at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Once again, quite minor. Then at 11:30 a.m., we happen to have some bill auctions. And besides that, everything else is going to be quite minor. So just keep that up very, very carefully. Very minor data for tomorrow, nothing too crazy. Just a couple more things. This is what the earnings calendar looks like. We just had Oracle announce their earnings. Then we have a couple of retail, such as like AutoZone and other things like that. We have Macy's announce their earnings on Wednesday. Then we have Costco on Thursday. Besides that, Oracle shares did come down a bit because of the fact that they had not the best of forecasts, and then their earnings were not that strong. So you look at the numbers, their EPS was at $1.47 adjusted versus $1.48 expected. Revenues at $14.06 billion. That is below expectations of 14.1 billion. So that is telling us that once again they missed on earnings. Their overall guidance was so. That's what the reason why we didn't really make that big of a move. It's basically the same as what we saw back in September. So not really enough stuff came out to really hype investors up, and that's why the share price is down. The market's neutral. It's getting closer to fear, and I think that could build up. I think momentum is slowing down as we're seeing less greed relative to before. The puts and call option ratio is at extreme greed right now, but we'll have to see if this starts going up as more puts get bought. And the VIX is trying to bounce a bit, so we'll have to see what happens with that as well. So that being said, guys, I'm going to focus less on the news now, just focus on the charts and nothing else. What do I see for Tesla going into tomorrow? Well, there's going to be a very, very big test tomorrow. One thing that's worth mentioning is that Tesla's on a very, very nice uptrend off this cup and handle like structure. We did dump all the way down to 380. I said to watch to see if that's going to hold. For now, we managed to hold very close to that range, and Tesla's trying to rebound here. So I wouldn't be surprised if Tesla attempts to push back up to this liquidity zone up here around this 400 area. We do have a big sell wall around 400 and then also at 404. So we might hit that resistance, shop around a bit. We'll have to see if Tesla could break through that or not. If not, there's going to be a risk of us coming back down for a little bit of a pullback. Otherwise, if we break 404, we're going to continue to be bullish. So I expect a small push on Tesla tomorrow morning towards that resistance at 400. We could be shuffling and dancing around that for some time, and then we'll have to see if Tesla could break it. The first time we hit this, we did get a big rejection. There's a good chance we kind of hit that, then slow down a bit. So we'll see about that. If we break 404, we're bullish, and if we can't hold above 400, we will turn back down to about at least 394 and 390. So look for a push for 400 and some consolidation tomorrow morning. Then we could slow down as the day goes on if we don't hold above that. So keep that in mind. As far as SPY goes, we're looking weaker, and that's the problem for Tesla. As the whole market starts to sell off, it could lead to a little bit of more weight for Tesla, which makes things a little bit more difficult for this to really continue to run. So for SPY, we called out yesterday how there could be a double top leg structure, and we had to see if we lost support to turn more bearish. We were correct about this popping in the daytime and then starting to dip. I was expecting a small dip, and I said if we lost 606, expect a bigger one. So look at 604 as our main support. If that fails us, we're looking for 602 to 601. Why that range? Because that's where we have this previous all-time high and previous resistance, which is now going to become support. If we break past 605.5 to 606, we will turn back up. But this chart is favoring more downside back down for essentially the 602.5 area as the most likely possibility. The chart favors downside, so keep that in mind. We might dip a little bit more before we see a big move. So there is a risk of more downside on SPY. ES is on a bit of a downtrend right here. We have to try to reclaim 60.63. Otherwise, this is going to be at risk of coming all the way down towards 60.50. There is a bearish divergence and a big rejection here, so I'm favoring 60.50 as a bigger possibility, and we'll see if we bounce or not. But for now, the downside does look a little bit more evident. I think this is favoring downside for 60.50. Nvidia has a nice looking structure. There was an inverse head and shoulders like structure developing right here, but the issue with this is that we haven't officially bounced. Look for a retest of 137 for tomorrow. If it does not hold, we look for 135. And as long as we hold this could attempt a bounce, but there's no sign yet of that. So we'll have to wait and see. Nvidia is still looking very heavy after this negative news came out involving China, we're seeing another probe on Nvda that's been opened, so that could lead to some downside. So please keep that in mind as time goes on. So with that being said, guys, be very, very careful with the way that things are moving. We could be looking for a small dip closer to this next level of support. So look for a test of 137, and we'll see if we continue to dip from there or not. For others out there, we have Bitcoin. Bitcoin essentially tried to push a bit. We got this little dip here only to rebound. So I'm expecting a push to about that 98,400 area to 98,800. In that range, you'll have to see if you reject or not. But look for some downside. Look for a pump at first towards that resistance. Then we could be looking for downside after that. So look for a pump for 98,400, then a move back down very close to that. For others out there, we happen to have we have NQ and the QQQ looking a little bit more bearish. They're at the support right here, but notice that this could be resembling head and shoulders. This could be like a left shoulder. This could be a head, and we could be from like a right shoulder before we start dipping a little bit lower if we do end up continuing this move. Look for an attempt to retest 21,500. If we reject near that area, there could be a right shoulder forming for more potential downside as the most likely case. If we kind of like pop here and start dipping and we lose the support around 21,420, we're looking for a dip back down for about 21,400 and 21,326. Look for a pop and drop as the most likely case, and we'll see what happens after that. For the QQQ, we have 521 as our main support and 520. If that fills us, we have the gap to fill at 517. We also have this resistance to watch for at 523.5, which is where we were right over here. There's a possibility that this is our left shoulder, this is our head, then the right shoulder could be forming. And that could lead to a move to the downside if this support fails us. Look for a pop here before we continue to dip lower. 521 is going to be the main support. If that fails, let's look for 520 and lower levels as the QQQ looks more bearish. There's a possible head and shoulder, so I do favor that as the most likely possibility. So keep that in mind. Apple looks a bit more bullish despite the fact that the broader markets are weaker because Apple has once again made this announcement that they're going to be investing more in AI. So look for an attempt to push up for about 248. If that breaks, we have 250 essentially coming. So I think that there is most definitely some potential in this to try to push higher. So please watch for that very, very closely. For other factors out there, we happen to have Netflix looking a little bit weaker. This might attempt to rebalance. So I would recommend drawing out a very, very handy dandy fib retracement scale just like this, just to see how well this is going to be looking. We could attempt to try to get back up towards this 0.5 retracement area, towards the 920 area. It's about the 0.618, and we'll see if we get very close to our golden pocket before we come back down. So look for an attempt to rebound very close to these levels. I think that 920 to 924 could be coming before it tries to reject. So be careful. As far as MSTR goes, it's on a bit of a downtrend. We could be on our way all the way down to lower levels, such as the 350 area. But look for an attempt to rebound first for the 380 to 384 zone before it rejects again. So please keep that in mind. For Celsius, we're trying to break out here. We have to try to hold above 30.8. If we hold above that, we're looking for essentially 32. If we don't, we're going to be looking for a dip back down towards 29. So I think this is favoring 32, and we'll see if we reject or not. So keep that in mind. For other factors out there, we have Supermicro, which is on a bit of an uptrend. We could be dipping closer to about 42.69. If that fails us, we're looking for essentially 40, then 38.26. I am favoring 42.69, then 40 is our target, so we'll see if we bounce off that or not. But for now, look for a small dip on Supermicro towards that support. My gut tells me it might bounce off 42.69, but look for a test. Palantir got this huge rejection after some negative news that just came out. Might attempt to rebound a bit, but just like what I said about Netflix, I would draw out a key for retracement here and watch our key levels. So we could be on our way back up towards our golden pocket all over again. We could be making an attempt to get to at least 75.75, very close to our 0.382 retracement area. And that could be looking for a bigger move as well. So look for an attempt to get back up to the 75 area, and we'll see if we reject or not. Otherwise, we will push a bit higher. There will be a small bounce coming to Palantir, and then we'll see if we reject. Rivian looks more bullish. We got some very, very nice buy ratings from different analysts. We could be looking for an attempt to hit 15. We'll see if we reject or not. We'll look for an attempt to hit 15, and then we'll see what kind of reaction we get from way up there. For others out there, we have SoFi. SoFi's on a bit of a downtrend here, but here's the thing about it. There's this support that's coming. It's very tricky because we have like a left shoulder here, a head, and then a right shoulder, which is leading to a downtrend. But our support's at 15.5 and resistance is going to be at 15.8. So it's very tight right now. I wouldn't be surprised if we kind of trade sideways from now, and then we might continue to downtrend a little bit lower. And the reason for that is because if we lose our 50 EMA, there's going to be a risk of us coming down towards this previous resistance, becoming supports around that 14.8 area. So I think the most likely case is that we consolidate for now in this like 15.5 zone. And then there might be a risk of us dipping closer to 15 later on. So please keep that in mind. For the IWM Russell 2000, there's a downtrend as well as we're making lower highs and lower lows. We could be dipping closer towards these lower levels. We might pop a bit for about 238 before we continue to dip closer to 236. So overall, there's going to be a risk of this dipping to 236. So just keep that in mind. There's a downtrend right now in this channel on the IWM. So I presume we're going to be respecting this for a little bit longer until we get a breakout. But there's no sign of the breakout yet, so we remain more bearish. For AMD, we look more bearish. We have to try to reclaim 136 to turn back up. Otherwise, this is favoring 130. So I think it might have a little bit more downside coming for the 130 targets. And if that fails us, I'm looking for essentially 127.5. So look for a little bit more downside. And we'll see if we bounce or not. 127.5 could be our next target until then. ARM is just completely range bound, very tight right now, forming a nice looking pennant. I think that we just trade sideways, look for a dip to about 138.37. I think we just consolidate between 138 and 140 for the majority of the day tomorrow. If we don't get a bounce, we don't break past that resistance, there's going to be a risk of us dipping a little bit lower towards like 136. But I favor a lot of sideways choppy price action, so I would not recommend trading that too much. Not financial advice, by the way. Coin is trying to push up for about 322. Might be looking for a retest of that resistance before it turns back down because we have this double top, which could favor more downside to about the lower 300s. Look for a push attempt towards 325, and we'll see if you reject. Look for a push, and then we'll see if it turns from there. Amazon's looking a little bit weaker with the big red bar that's forming and the fact that we're turning on the PPO. So this does typically suggest downside could be coming. We might attempt to push for about 228 before it starts dipping lower. I'm sorry, 227 before it dips back down lower. Look for 227 then to move back down to about 225 is the most likely case. If that fails us, I'm going to be looking for essentially 221, so keep that in mind. There is still that risk of downside that perpetuates. For others out there, we have Meta, which could be retesting 609. We'll have to see if that holds. Otherwise, 600 is coming. I think it retests 609. It could be dipping. Microsoft pumped very nicely, but now it's turning. So it's just stuck in the 444 area. We could be dipping closer to 442, though, so give it some time. Google's more bullish. We could be looking for an attempt to get back up to about 179. As long as we're above that, I think 180 is going to be a nice target. So we'll just have to see how it goes from there. For DJT, we had a high up here around 37, came down, made a lower high, so it could be dipping back down for 34.27, so we'll have to see what happens after that. The VIX is breaking out here, so if you break past 14.25, we're looking for a much larger move closer to 15, so we'll see what kind of reaction we get. It is still bullish looking. That could suggest more downsides coming. The 10-year is trying to push, and so is the dollar, which typically suggests downside, at least for the broader markets. So now they're starting to move like they normally do. I anticipate the market might dip a little bit more. So a little bit more downside could be coming before we see a much larger bounce later on during the year. So look for a little bit more downside first, and I'll talk more about the bounce later. As far as Tesla goes, this is going to be a little bit different from the market. It's very strong. The price-price ratio shows strength. So look for an attempt to get up to 395 to 400 for tomorrow. And we'll see if Tesla could hold above 400. It's a very tough resistance. There's a big sell wall over there. So be careful at 400. I think Tesla will attempt to get close to it tomorrow, and we'll see if we reject or not. But look for a push upon open, then we'll see how well it holds up. I'm going to be very patient nonetheless, so I'll see you guys very soon. Thank you for listening, and peace out.